Good morning, Patrice. How you guys doing?
We're doing great. Good. Thank you so much for coming on today. I think you've been watching. We started watching last night, the first night of the DNC. And obviously Tim Walz and his record has been a big issue. But now here in Virginia, in the 7th congressional district race, it seems like the stolen valor or overinflating of military credentials seems to be an issue. Do you want to talk about what's going on in your race?
Yeah, Patrice. Hey, Larry, how's it going, brother?
Good morning, Derrick.
From you as well.
Sure.
Look, Patrice, first and foremost, I'm never going to denigrate anyone that served or anyone's service to our country, right? Like, you all have how many veterans on all the time, and we are proud of every veteran that served. But this is different, right? This is something that there's some questions that need to be answered. Mr. Vindman, Yevgeny Vindman is my opponent in this race. There's some questions that are in that article that he should answer. There's some questions around his military rank and what he retired as, whether he served in combat, whether he had a combat action badge. In fact, I have a lot of veteran buddies, Patrice and Larry, that live in the 7th congressional district that are listeners of yours all the time. So for all of those out there, all of those veterans, all those active duty, all those folks out there, they know what I'm talking about, And my question to him is why him and his campaign just won't answer these simple questions.
Let's get into
they referred to it.
Can we get into the detail real fast, just so, because people might not know all the details? It sounds like this is very similar to Tim Walz in that he retired as a colonel, he held the rank of colonel on active duty, but when he retired, it was lieutenant colonel, which is an important distinction. And this is because he didn't actually complete his service that was required to actually fully retire as a bird colonel, as they would say. Is that right?
Yeah, and that's what the article seems to suggest. And, there's some questions about whether or not, he was in combat, whether he wasn't. Again, these are all questions that he should be answering. It's the same answers and questions that the vice presidential nominee, Tim Walz, has refused to answer as well. And again, what's interesting about this one as well, Larry and Patrice, is that not only did him and his campaign really not answer those questions, which they did, the people here in the 7th congressional district deserve answers, but they instead referred to an outside organization that he shouldn't be coordinating with. I mean, that's an issue at all.
That's weird.
But regardless of all of it, and regardless of all of it, it goes to one thing. It goes to character and truthfulness. Voters need to be able to decide and be prepared to decide who their next congressman in the 7th congressional district here in Virginia is. And it looks like one is in it for themselves, where, who's in it to serve the actual district. This is the district that I grew up in. This is the district that I'm accountable to. So I think it's important about folks that folks, especially Yevgeny Vindman, is open and truthful and honest about his military record and character. Look, how many times I've been on here, Patrice and Larry, I've always been open about I was an infantry officer. I went to Ranger School. I deployed to Iraq for 15 months as part of the surge. I was a Green Beret. I did 5 deployments with the Green Berets. I was in Bahrain, Lebanon, Israel, Jordan, Afghanistan. I led 2 special forces teams. That's me. I'm putting it out there on the line, right? I think it's important that people are truthful on their service. And so if you can't answer these simple questions straight, then why can we trust them to answer other questions or to serve the people here in the district? Again, this is my home district.
Mm-hmm. Well, and thinking about the broader picture, moving into taking over a congressional seat, the fact is Congress has a big say in a lot of foreign interventions, whether it's from a funding perspective or, frankly, if the United States is dragged into war, being able to green light that. So, talk to us about it. What are you seeing coming from your opponent's side that scares you and should scare constituents in the district about what he would do if he were elected versus what you would do if you were elected from a foreign policy standpoint?
Yeah, Patrice, one of the things that's interesting is my opponent, Yevgeny Vindman, he's worried about his past. And this is what's interesting about him, is that he's worried about his past. He's focused on, he has a revenge tour against Donald Trump right now. He's worried about having to clarify and rectify the Biden-Harris failed policies, including the failed policies at our national security level. And I do believe he'd be a rubber stamp to continue those same policies and hurt people in our district, the Commonwealth, the United States. We're focused on the future. We're focused on the future of the people here in the 7th Congressional District. When we look at it from a national security perspective, again, I mentioned, I do believe he would be a rubber stamp for the Biden-Harris failed policies. We look at Biden. I mean, I'm not sure, Larry, Patrice, if you guys watched the DNC last night, but Biden and Harris have equivocated on their support of Israel over and over again. And what does that do? It causes issues from an international standpoint because our enemies become emboldened, right? Yeah. When Biden and Harris look Israel in the eye in one sense and say, we've got your back, but then turn to a camera as they're walking out of Air Force One or what have you, and they say, yeah, we need to go to a ceasefire. We need to go to the table. Look, nobody wants war, right? I served in Iraq and Afghanistan. No one wants that. But at the same time, Israel has an absolute right to defend themselves. And I think the Biden-Harris administration has quickly forgotten what happened on October 7th. They've quickly forgotten that there's over 100 hostages still being held, including Americans.
Yes,
and they don't talk about it. You didn't hear anyone talk about that at the DNC last night. You haven't heard the Biden-Harris administration mention that, nor have they mentioned the 13 U.S. service members that were killed during the Afghan withdrawal, which is one of the main reasons why I got into this race, is seeing the botched withdrawal in Afghanistan. So again, all of these foreign policies that the Biden-Harris administration have been responsible for over the last 3.5 years, it lays at their feet. And again, my opponent, he's worried about his past and trying to rectify those deficiencies within the Biden-Harris administration. He's got a revenge tour against Donald Trump. Well, we're focused on the future. We're looking at things like the economy and making it more affordable to live, making sure our border is more secure so our communities are safe. I mean, these seem like simple concepts, but my opponent and his party, for whatever reason, it's not as simple for them.
We're speaking to Derrick Anderson, running for the 7th Congressional District in Virginia. And listen, I'm interested in the past in terms of confusing past statements from your opponent. I'm reading from a Daily Mail article, 2019. It's profiling both Vindman brothers, the twins. And it says here, his brother, Evgeny, who goes by Eugene, has an impressive array of medals testifying to a distinguished career. Unlike Alexander, he has not seen combat, and he also served time in the reserves. All right, but then you see a tweet from Mr. Vindman, your opponent, December of 2023, and it says, I served our nation in combat. These weapons of war have no place on our streets. Exactly what Tim Walz was saying, right? I carried this weapon in war. So this is a very simple thing, isn't it, Derrick Anderson? I mean, you're former military. You're surrounded by people in the military. You either saw combat or not. And when his campaign is asked to clear this up, the spokesperson directs all inquiries to a political action committee, which, by that, is that even legal for them to coordinate with a political action committee like that, Derrick?
I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to do that.
Right.
So again, these are serious questions that he does,
the Daily Mail might have gotten that wrong, but I would think that he could just correct the record. Yeah, Daily Mail was wrong. I saw combat. Here's where I served, right?
Yeah, I mean, and again, though, Larry, to your point, answer the questions. They owe answers to the American public, to the people here in the Senate. They are interviewing for a job right now to be the next congressman in the 7th Congressional District, and they owe those answers to the people in the Senate. Wow. Like I said, Larry, I wear my military record on my sleeve. I'm very open about where I've been, what I've done. I have no problems with it.
And actually, by the way, Derrick, you're very quick to correct someone if they erroneously overstate your combat. You're one of those guys. It's like, wait a minute, let me just be clear here. I wasn't, a SEAL or whatever. So, all right. Well, listen, the Washington Post may not be interested in vetting the candidates who want to serve in Northern Virginia, but we certainly are. And we'll try to get answers on this, too. I ain't calling no super PAC, though. I want to hear from the campaign. Derrick Anderson, a Green Beret veteran and Republican nominee for Virginia 7. The website is derrickanderson.com. Thanks for joining us on this. We'll try to get answers for
Derrick.
you. Larry and Patrice, always a pleasure. Thanks again for having me.
It is 7:47.